Welcome to the October Planning and Zoning meeting for Mexico Beach, 2019. And first thing I'm going to do is ask Jennifer to call a roll.
Mr. Hogan?
Here.
Ms. Metcalf?
Here.
Mr. Kerrigan?
Here.
Mr. Driver?
Here.
Mr. Masters? Ms. Lindsay?
Here.
Mr. Bush?
Here.
Thank you. Want to welcome everybody and kind of give you some of the ground rules, which are a pretty loose group here, but we do have a procedure we need to follow. So for each variance request or development request, we have to have a public meeting. So we'll open the meeting, ask for comments from anybody here representing that group, and then close those comments, and then let the board speak, and then the board will typically make a motion to approve or disapprove. Just a reminder that we're an advisory board, completely volunteer. So irrespective of what's decided in this meeting, if you have something on the agenda, you should go to the council meeting, which is next Tuesday.
Tomorrow.
Oh, tomorrow,
Mhm.
okay. So go to the council meeting to follow up. They're actually the one that really stamps it one way or the other, although our record's been pretty good as far as what we approve and what they approve. But anyway, if you have any questions along the way or any comments on the one we're talking about, then please jump in. We're gonna move a little bit quicker than normal because we've got such a full agenda on here. And as I said before, if you have any, if you have something here and you're done and you wanna leave, feel free to leave. Won't bother us at all, but we're happy to have you here. For those of you who might not have met Andy, Andy Anderson's our new city administrator, been here. How long, Andy? A couple of months?
Going on, yeah, almost 1.5 months.
And Jennifer's the crack assistant. And Ms. Johnson is the building, what's your title now?
Good question.
She's representing the building department today, so she'll be a good resource for us on any questions we have. So with that being said, Jennifer, could you make your announcement again as far as the meeting place, so we're plugged
Absolutely.
into that?
Yep, just so it's on record, we are gonna be having our future meetings from here on out over in the Public Works Department that is located directly behind the City Hall. It'll be on your far left-hand side. We'll put a note on the door. It'll be much more roomy. We'll have about 35 seats available for people to come in.
Great.
And it starts tomorrow.
It starts tomorrow with tomorrow's City Hall meeting. Yep,
Okay.
council meeting.
Andy, do you have anything, I know I'm kind of putting you on the spot here, you weren't ready for this, but do you have anything town-wise that you'd like to just throw out or talk to the citizens about, or
Just,
tell us what's going on?
Things are progressing, as you know. FEMA money's starting to come in. If you read in the paper, there's about 26 million there. We're gonna get 20 million for it, and it's all related to debris removal. So that can keep all of our small businesses in town happy that we can pay them. As you know, the police department is gonna transition to the sheriff department. I met with the sheriff Friday. You will see a lot of similar faces returning. They just won't be wearing shields, they'll be wearing stars. So I know that was a big concern for a lot of residents. You'll see nicer equipment with brand new uniforms. So those are the two really major things going on. But financially, we feel a lot better than we, since I've been here, we feel pretty good. We got 1.1 from the governor 2 weeks ago. That won't be till sometime after the 15th. And we have another $6 million under that $25 million state emergency grant that we have asked for to cover everything. So I'm feeling pretty good.
Yeah.
When I got here, it was the end of the year and touch and go. I'm like, wow, there's not a lot of money here.
Yeah.
But now it's coming. So.
Well, it's great, and we have 98 open, and
Yeah,
the
98
beach looks
open.
great, and the walkovers are coming along, so lots of positive things. Speaking of which, our first one up is definitely a positive. Commercial development request for Centennial Bank, gonna open the public meeting, and is anybody here representing Centennial Bank?
I can say a few words. My name's Mitch Stubbs. I work with Yormore Engineering. This is pretty straightforward, I think. It's just a rebuild of what was there. Landscaping will be, you know, pretty similar. The building footprint, I think, is almost the exact same. Just a rebuild, pretty straightforward, I think, but if y'all have any questions, I'll do my best to answer them.
Okay, thank you. Anybody have any comments, questions? Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the commercial development request for Centennial Bank rebuild at 101 North 15th Street.
Okay.
Second.
I need to back up, and I closed the meeting, got the motion, so now we're ready. We have a second.
Ready to roll.
Like I said, we got a lot on the agenda. Thank you.
Right?
Call
Mr. Ho-
roll.
Yep, Mr. Hogan?
Here.
Metcalf?
Yes.
Mr. Kerrigan?
Yes.
Mr. Driver?
Yes.
Ms. Lindsay?
Yes.
Great. And it'll be open when?
As soon as possible.
Great.
That's a good answer, yeah.
We appreciate it.
I'm glad they're committed to staying.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah,
Absolutely.
that's great. Okay, next one is lot split, 118 39th Street. Gonna open the public hearing meeting. Is anybody here representing 118 39th Street?
Yes, my client actually sends his apologies, he couldn't be here. I'm the architect for the property, and this is actually a resubmit that we did a few months ago. We've made the corrections necessary to ensure that both halves of the property meet the minimum square footage requirements. In order to do that, you'll see that if you look at the plan, that a minor easement, access easement was granted, and we were able to pull that off where, without affecting the buildable footprint based on setbacks of the north property, so one really wouldn't have an effect on the other. So that's it.
Thanks for taking the time to go back and take another look.
Absolutely.
Does anybody have any questions or comments? This is one that we looked at before. As you recall, the smaller lot was too small, so we sent them back to the drawing board.
Literally.
Is this tourist zoning, tourist something?
HDR, yeah,
Oh,
identity
identity.
resident.
Identity.
Identity.
Yep. Okay, close the public meeting on this one, and do we have a motion?
I move that we approve the replat as it is shown here.
Okay, do we have a second?
A second.
Mr. Hogan?
Here.
Metcalf?
Yes.
Mr. Kerrigan?
Yes.
Mr. Driver?
Yes,
Ms. Lindsay?
Yes.
thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next one up is 105 North 28th Street. Gonna go ahead and open the public meeting on that. And do we have anybody here representing 105 North 28th Street? Okay,
All I'm requesting is to be able to build the carport as a lean-to carport back like it was. And I know the variance is, I think, 7 feet now,
7.5.
7.5, and I think that what it was before it was torn off, is 3.2 feet. And the footprint of the wall of the outside of the carport is still there. It was like a 2-block knee wall with a 2x8 on top of it, and then some 4x4 posts for the outside of the carport. And all I'm asking is that we can rebuild it like it was.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Was it attached to the house?
Ma'am,
Is it attached to the house?
it was, yes.
It was attached
Yes,
to the
ma'am.
house.
Now, of course, when we came down here and cleaned it up, we had to tear off the rafters that were hanging and all
I
that
just
sort of
wanted
stuff.
to know if it was attached. Also,
Yes, ma'am.
what would be the problem with you putting it on the flip side of your property?
It's be on the opposite end of the house of the doors. So,
True,
uh,
but you wouldn't need a variance,
ma'am,
but you wouldn't need a.
no ma'am, I probably wouldn't.
Would you still do that if that was your only? That's
I probably would not.
it's a
Yes,
question.
ma'am. Yes, ma'am. And I looked at it just a few minutes ago. If you go back 7.5 feet from the line, then obviously it's too small to put a car in there and open the door. I mean, we've had it.
Oh, right, from
Yes,
what you have right now. I mean, from
Yes, ma'am.
what you
Yes,
wanna
ma'am.
do.
You're right.
If you had the regular
Had to
stuff,
move
that
it
would
back
be-
in, yeah.
Okay.
And it was, as far as I can determine, it was built in 1954, and it's been like that since I mean, I've been coming down here since I was 10, and it was always like that. And it just happened, you know, one of those, we're like everybody else, we had damage and it was torn.
Of course, I just had a
Yeah,
couple questions.
yes, ma'am.
for you.
Is there a slab there, or was there a slab there?
No, sir. Well, there's a small slab out there where a washer and dryer was at one time, but it's just a kind of,
Just wanted to reattach.
yes, ma'am.
So the washer and dryer, typically the washer and dryer units kind of go perpendicular to the house if you're looking from the street. So is there a slab where the washer and dryer was?
It's like a 4x3 slab there, but I've been involved in that house since 1961 or so, and there's never been a washer and dryer out there. There was one before I was involved in it.
Right, so they moved it.
Yes, sir.
So that slab extends
Oh, just,
inside the 7.5?
oh, yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it was under the carport.
And was the carport aluminum or?
No, it was just like the house.
Just
part
like
of
the house? Was
yeah.
the roof contiguous
Mhm.
going across to the
Correct.
carport?
Mhm.
Okay.
Right.
Interesting.
There was no delineation between the two, it was just straight on out from the roof, it's a hip roof. And it just went out all the way to the end.
Just went all the way across.
Mhm.
Okay.
I live next door to him.
Yes,
And,
ma'am.
I think he needs to have that attachment to his house to help upgrade.
Are you on the short side?
I'm on the, south side of the house.
The carport was on the north
Oh,
side.
right,
Okay.
north.
She's,
Thank you, that's
Yeah.
where I
Okay.
yeah.
yeah, Miss Howard's on
And
the
that
north
is,
side.
yeah.
Okay. Yes,
Sir?
With this being a pre-existing structure with a roof over it, would that not fall under the ordinance to rebuild the same footprint and not need a variance? Or?
well, that's part of the challenge we're looking at.
Yeah.
Right.
Gina, can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, the way I saw it was it's an accessory structure,
Okay.
and that's specifically prohibited in or not prohibited, but,
Not included?
not included in the ordinance.
Okay.
That's why it needed to come before here.
I just wanted for future reference.
Yeah, the roof line was not like the roof came down, the trusses for the garage were not underneath. It was just a continuous of the roof line itself, so, but, you know, we talked and, you know, I respect what she has to say, but I just wanted to build it right like it was since 1954.
So, could you draw just the roof line for me?
Sure.
Just so I can better understand.
It's a hip roof, it's
Just from the street, looking at it,
yes, sir.
just draw the roof line.
The garage was here, and then it went up for a hip roof, and then came back down like this.
Okay, and was this all, the same
Yes.
shingled roof
Yes.
kind of thing? Okay,
And the front porch is torn off. We gotta have it rebuilt too, but that has nothing to do with this.
Okay.
All of this was the same. All of that, this was a 4x4 post on a 2-block knee wall out there.
okay, so the knee wall's still there?
Well, remnants,
left of it.
remnants,
Yeah.
remnants of it, like everybody else.
Okay.
This is a regular stick-built house?
No, ma'am, it's a block house.
It's a block house.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right, any other comments, questions?
I did talk to, I'm sorry,
Go
but I
ahead.
did talk to the neighbor on the south side, on the north side, and he said and I'm sure, I hope y'all got a response back from him, and he said he didn't have any objections to it back like it was.
Okay. All right. Anybody else have any comments or questions?
Well, when we developed this land development use, we kind of tried to clean up some of the things that have been going on for a long time. And I really don't see where this variance request meets our criteria for approval, to be honest with you. Because of the setback so close, it is an accessory building, as Ms. Johnson said. So,
Okay. I'm gonna close the meeting, public part, and then the board can talk. Does anybody else on the board have?
I've got an observation, okay? As Alex mentioned, council charged us to prevent non-conforming structures. This would obviously be a non-conforming structure. And arguably, it only meets one criteria for variance, that being number one of the new standards of review. And it's based on the way you read that as to whether or not that meets it. So, based on the fact that he can put the carport on the other side of the house and it doesn't meet the criteria for the variance, I would recommend disapproval.
Okay. Anybody else have any comments? I'll go ahead. I'm on the fence a little bit on this one, certainly by the strict interpretation of the accessory structure. I had a similar kind of house that had a carport that was incorporated into the original structure built in 1964. And although mine was within the 7.5 feet, I don't know that I feel like that carport is really an accessory structure based on the fact that it's been a part of the house and has a knee wall and is in the continual roof line of the house. So that's kind of where I go back and forth on that. Gina, do you have any more comments as far as what our definition of an accessory structure is? Anything that's not the main part of the house, is that?
No, no, and that's really why it's here. It was pretty great. And,
Okay.
I didn't feel like we could make a call as to whether that was an accessory structure or not.
Okay.
Well, I agree that we need to uphold what we were charged to do. And in my opinion, it just doesn't meet the requirements for a variance. It just doesn't. So, either we're going to enforce the regulations or not, so I'm not in favor of it.
I'm on the fence with you.
Same.
Same?
Yeah.
Yeah. Just,
You do have the opportunity to move it to the other side. Not ideal, but just as in the previous decision we had to make, they had to rearrange their homes to fit the property.
Mm-hmm.
I have another question for this gentleman. You're gonna rebuild the porch on the front, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Does the porch have a front door?
Yes, ma'am.
Would it really be terribly difficult to come off the porch and go the opposite direction?
Well, then you.
We're stretching.
Yes, ma'am. And then you cover up the window in the bedroom, the front bedroom.
Well, I have a porch on my house,
Sure.
and I have a covered window.
Yes, ma'am.
Um,
Well, I'm just trying to rebuild it like it was before the storm.
Well, we
That's all.
hope you understand our dilemma
Sure,
here.
Sure. I
Because,
appreciate y'all volunteer doing it too.
yeah. Yeah, it's not a personal issue at all.
Oh, I know.
And it is tough, so, and you said you probably wouldn't do it, okay. I guess that's all the questions.
Okay. Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion that we disapprove the variance on 105 North 28th Street.
I second.
Okay. So there's a motion on the table to disapprove the variance. Jennifer?
Mr. Hogan?
Yes.
Ms. Metcalf?
Yes.
Mr. Kerrigan?
Yes.
Mr. Driver?
Yes.
Ms. Lindsay?
Yes. I'm sorry.
every time.
Council could do something completely different.
That's
Sorry.
right. They don't always take our recommendation.
Yeah.
Thank y'all so much.
Yes, sir, thank you.
I was just thinking about the beautification, you know, the street, everybody beautifying Mexico Beach needs to make everything white,
Yes,
nice.
Yep. Okay, next one is 116th South 37th Street, Unit A. This is one that we had in, it's a part of one that we had in last time, which is units B through E, which we approved. And this is basically letting A piggyback on B and E. Initially, I guess they were in the first, or in the initial submittal, so they're coming back and A's asking for basically what we approved on B and E. So I'll go ahead and open the meeting on this. Is anybody here representing A?
So Unit A was, like you said, they were just a little bit late on approving the variance, moving forward with the variance process, but it's the same thing, and all it is, and the only reason the variance is required in this case is because the grandfather ordinance that came in specifically states if something is moving forward into a LDR setback that has to go to the variance process. But it's actually a shared firewall, they've got party wall agreements, same thing as the other units, so they're all moving to the same location, so it's the same as the other 4 units.
Okay. Anybody else have any comments or questions on this one? Do we have a motion?
I would like to open it for discussion.
Okay.
Obviously, I wasn't here. Why was this variance approved last month? Because they could have built in the same footprint, so why was it approved?
I think they had to raise the structure, therefore, put it up on pilings, is that not correct? Therefore, requiring them to be able to get into their home, so they had to use part, is that not correct?
Right, yeah, one of the reasons for extending it was they're losing square footage for having to have stairwells come in front of the house.
Okay.
So that was one reason. The other reason I think that it was looked at favorably was because the only setbacks they're encroaching on are their own with the other units, and they're already zero lot line, because they're all townhomes with party wall agreements.
So they're meeting the setbacks, the other setbacks for the lots.
Well, unit A is on the end, is that not correct?
Right, unit A's on the end, and there is no set variance request on the end. They meet the 10-foot corner setback right there.
They do meet 10 foot.
Yes, sir. Yeah, the only request on this one is the west adjoining property line with unit B, and they have a party wall agreement on that.
Okay, well, I can, based on that rationale, I can make a comment, is it only makes sense to recommend approval of this one, because failing to do so would put them in a position whereas everybody else in that complex has the advantage of doing it, and they don't, which would be unfair to them. So that meets one of the major criteria of the variance request.
Okay. Any other comments?
Can I ask a point of clarification?
Sure.
Y'all said that the other units had wanted to extend out from the original footprints because they're going up on pilings and they're losing square footage because they have to do the steps to get up?
That's one of the reasons, yeah.
Okay, and this is just a general observation and question. Even though they're losing square footage, and I'm just gonna using this group as an example, what happens with all of these others that are coming that lose square footage because they have to go up and they don't want to lose square footage, so they're all asking for variances, which I think may have come up before.
We've turned down
Yes.
variances
So-
that encroach into the
I
setback.
don't, I'm trying to understand how y'all are looking at this. You denied some and now you're granting others. So how are y'all figuring this out? Because it seems to me, the rationale is always you build to fit your lot. That's how it works everywhere else now, doesn't always work here. Instead of moving parameters and regulations to fit what you want. So how are y'all figuring this?
I can speak on that too, cause I've.
Well, you can't speak on that because the board was the one that made the decision and has the rationale for it.
Okay, go for it.
Well, I'm just saying, I understand where you're coming from, and I agree with you. Had I been here at the last meeting, I would have recommended disapproval of this for the very reason. But the fact that it was approved last time, you're putting the owner of A at a distinct disadvantage compared to all the other owners, and that's not fair, and that's not in keeping with the comp plan.
Well, okay, that I understand. If you do it for 4 of the 5, then you have to do it for the 5th
Yes.
one. But I guess I'm asking, as an overall question, instead of people getting variances because they have to put staircases in and they don't want to give up their square footage, so they want to move the rules, how do you reconcile that with some and not others?
And I'm interested in what he had to say about it. Sometimes they cut into the setback in this particular situation. What were you about to?
If it weren't for that grandfathering rule, this would not require a variance. This is under the LDR is acceptable. The only language that makes this require a variance is that it says in the new ordinance that if you go outside of your footprint and
Okay.
you are encroaching by LDR setbacks on your lot lines, because these are individual parcels of a multi-unit structure, that's what makes them fall under this. But without that,
They wouldn't need it.
they wouldn't even need this variance. They just
Okay.
extend the party wall agreement, they'd be good to go.
Okay, okay.
It's not quite the same,
Yeah, if you do
Gotcha.
recall, we did turn down an elevator that,
yeah.
Yeah,
That
gentleman,
gentleman
Okay.
needed.
but that went right into the setback. and that's
Okay.
what we do.
Thank you.
Okay, all right, gonna close the comments, and do we have a motion?
Make a motion to approve the variance request.
A second.
Mr. Hogan?
Yes.
Ms. Metcalf?
Yes.
Mr. Kerrigan?
Yes.
Mr. Driver?
Yes.
Ms. Lindsay?
Yes.
Okay. Next one is a minor replat request, 143 to 147 Ocean Plantation Circle, lots 22, 23, and 24. Go ahead and open the public meeting. Do we have anybody here representing those lots?
I'm the owner of 143
Okay.
Plantation. The only reason myself and the owner of 147, we both have windows in the house on the living room side. Mine's on the north side, his is on the south side, but that lot is what splits our properties. We literally just want to go in there and grade it, grass it, irrigate it, and have it as yard where nobody can build between us, you know?
So you're taking an extra lot between you,
That's exactly.
dividing that,
Yes, sir.
not being built on, it just becomes part of your lot and part
For
of
a
your
part of
neighbor's
the
lot.
setback, that's right.
So we're taking 3 lots, less than the density, and making 2.
That's right, that's exactly right. And that's the only reason, we don't have, I have no plans on doing anything with the extra, square footage of lot space or anything. I just want a larger yard and nobody to get between us, so.
Okay, fair enough. Anybody have any comments or questions on this one? Okay, I'm gonna close the public part. Anybody on the board have any comments or questions?
You've already mentioned it creates a less dense environment, it meets all the LDR requirements, I would recommend that we recommend approval.
Okay. Gonna close the board comments. Do we have any motions?
I move that we accept this approval for the replat.
Okay. Do we have a second?
A second.
Okay. Are we going too fast for you, Jennifer?
No, you're fine. Mr. Hogan?
Yes.
Ms. Metcalf?
Yes.
Mr. Kerrigan?
Yes.
Mr. Drivers?
Yes.
Ms. Lindsay?
Yes.
Okay,
Thank you,
thanks
guys.
for coming.
You're welcome.
Appreciate you.
Yep.
All right. Next one is under miscellaneous, and ordinance 736, which the council has drawn up, would basically eliminate the council review for canal development orders. I think it's in your package, if you had a chance to look at it. And typically, the way we've been working these is, we've been looking at them, and then I'm making a recommendation just like in everything else, and then the council approves them. I think the council feels like that it's a minor enough development order that they don't need to be involved in it, and that's evidently why this was drawn up. Andy, are you plugged into this at all?
Yeah, I think since I've been here, a lot of those, and you've all seen them, they're just rebuilding what they have there. And it's just-
Seawall.
It's delaying, their development of their lot or their canal area.
You're all right with,
Yeah, it's mostly residential seawalls and docks, is really what we're dealing with, and
okay.
it's, you know, it's putting them 2 weeks out, sometimes maybe a month, depending on
Okay.
when they're coming in.
And if they're, for example, someone was gonna build a 2-story dock, then you're gonna raise the flag
Right,
and let the council and us know
yes.
what's going on.
Yeah.
That isn't a,
But hey,
normal
this
dock.
isn't the same,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
okay. All right. Any comments, public or board on this?
I have a
ordinance?
comment. I'm not in favor of this. By eliminating the review, it does not allow the public an opportunity to comment on anything that may be put in the canal. It goes straight to the building department, and if somebody in the neighborhood has a problem with it, they have no recourse to complain about it or to bring it up for consideration. And I think it needs to be considered somewhere other than just the building department. And then, let's face it, you know, right now, we're talking about rebuilding seawalls and docks. You know, if we're talking about something other than that doesn't meet the criteria for major, that's, you know, something that needs to be considered. I just don't see taking an opportunity away from public input. I just disagree with that.
Do you have a fairly stringent, list of items that you go through when someone requests something that doesn't need to go any further than you? I have never asked for anything from your office personally, so I do not know.
Okay,
But just to touch base on Jim's, question, I'd like to know how intricate your, system is.
so what we do for any development orders, we go through an LDR checklist and check off each item, depending on what it is. If it's a residential house, it's impervious area and setbacks and, canal development orders. There's really not a whole lot to it, other than how far they are within the canal and where they are as, relation to their neighbors. Other than that, as far as LDR goes, there's not a whole lot to those canal development orders for single-family residential.
And-
But yes, we have a checklist we go through.
And this was requested by,
That was requested by the council in the last meeting, I
2
believe.
meetings ago, I think.
Yeah,
2 meetings
trying to
ago.
move along. I certainly understand where Jim's coming from, because we had one, if you remember, that we looked at that was a little bit tight
Yeah, I
on
remember.
where the parking, how the boat would get in there, and we did look at that, and the council ended up approving that. But another way to look at it is, the building department has the authority to approve new single-family dwellings or multifamily dwellings that meet all the LDR procedures and stuff without review by the council. And you could argue that certainly a house could have a lot more complications than a canal or development. So there's really a couple ways to look at this, that they've got the authority to do that, but should they have the authority to do a canal? I'm a boater, Jim's a boater, so we're very concerned about what goes in the canal, and it's 25% from the bank. They can't go more than 25% from the bank on their side, and honestly don't know whether we have any regulations that say, can they go to their lot line on a dock? Or if two people go to the lot line, then you're not gonna have enough room to get a boat in,
Right,
so
there's a setback, I can't remember exactly what it is, but
there is.
yeah, there is in the LDR, there's.
Okay. So, under this ordinance, we're not looking at canal orders, I don't believe. Andy, do you know, or Jim, have you looked at this to,
Well, it basically,
I know the council won't look at it, but are we still looking at it?
well, no, we're not looking at it. It goes to them, goes to
Oh, yeah,
them, and that's where it
doesn't even
stops.
come here,
Doesn't come here.
it goes straight to the council.
Okay.
I just think somebody, no, well, you have my position.
Okay, so.
And the purpose of this change is to expedite rebuilding.
So they don't have to wait 2 weeks or a month.
So if it were changed and presented a problem, can it be changed back?
Certainly.
Yeah.
It says installation, construction of seawalls, docks, boathouses, and boat lifts, and that's where it starts to get a little complicated, or could.
So the council was reviewing and approving each and every one of these?
Everyone, everyone, every seawall repair, every seawall repair, every dock repair.
Well,
That's a lot of it too.
I guess no different than a single-family house, if the building department had an issue or question about what was being proposed, you would
What would you do?
not approve it and bring it to us for a variance,
Yeah.
correct?
Yeah, first, anything that I had a question with, I'd take to Andy. He has to sign off on all development orders,
Right.
period. So it would go to him first, and then it would go from there to either you guys or straight to the council, depending on what it was.
Yeah, if it's much different than what was there before, I'm not putting my signature to, I'd take that back to council.
And there's no posting of canal requests like there is a variance request.
No.
So, as a neighbor, Jim has a point that they wouldn't know
No.
that there was something happening and suddenly the dock could.
No, the whole intention behind this is just to have everything, what they had there before. Obviously, there may be some small alterations to get those through, because the council, when we bring them to them, they don't, there was no discussion, it was just like, okay. So it was just that extra red tape that was holding up the home. But like I said, if Gina brought me something where it was substantially different than they had, I would still take that back to council. I'm not going to change the environment that was there prior to the storm.
Yeah, but how about new development orders? Does it fall into this category? Because that's gonna happen.
A new dock that
New
wasn't
dock,
there before.
yeah.
I hear you.
And again, I fall back onto that one we looked at where you had to kind of like sit back in like that to get there.
Well, here's
I'm
what-
not saying I don't trust you, Gene, I'm just saying,
No,
I
I
think
agree.
the public needs an opportunity
Absolutely.
to know what's going on. And I think that a lot of times the city does too much in the dark.
So before us,
Okay, I
Go
have a
ahead.
question.
yes,
So this has come before us,
right.
but we're not involved in this at this point,
No.
correct? So
We have been in the past, though. Canal
we have.
development orders used to come through us,
Okay,
to us.
so is it possible we could go back to the council and say, you know, maybe not have to have the approval, but at least have some kind of public notice that something was going on? Would that satisfy the,
We can certainly suggest that tomorrow at the meeting, saying that
Something
there should be
That we-
a posting, you know, how we do the
that
signs.
was a
and-
posting,
yeah.
like, yes, exactly. If we just did that, and as I understand it, we send out, when someone requests a variance, a letter goes to the neighbors
That is correct.
adjoining land. So if we could do the posting, would that,
That would
be enough?
satisfy the requirement, in my
Then
opinion.
You could take that to the council as a
Yeah,
suggestion.
I can take that as a condition of whatever you guys decide on.
Okay, well, let's go with that.
That makes sense. Good thinking there, girl.
And I think that, just to piggyback on that, that we would then rely on you two to throw the flag up.
Yeah.
If there's something there that, new development or whatever, that
I
doesn't look right.
I like it too much here to mess things up.
Yeah.
It's
The
sort of-
canal is an important amenity.
Don't get too comfortable.
Number 2 amenity behind the beach, and some would argue number 1 amenity
I can-
back in
I
the old
concur.
days. So we're
Yeah.
very concerned about having those docks stick out too far or,
Well, it's,
Be too
it's
high, block the
interesting
view.
that you say that. I was at the meeting 2-3 meetings ago where the council just by rote okayed a dock rebuild somewhere back about 35th, 36th, somewhere back in there. And that dock, they said they were building in the same footprint as they had before the storm, but that dock has more square footage than my house. My house has 1,144 square feet. Now that's a whopper of a dock back there at 36th Street. Nobody blinked an eye, nobody said anything. I didn't say anything because, you know, I have to pick and choose my battles, but,
So what is the process for that? If you supposed to build in the same footprint or put your pilings a maximum of 25% out, is there a monitoring group that comes and puts a tape measure to it, or?
it's the building
Yeah,
department.
when we
You do.
inspect it, when they
Okay.
call for inspection, yeah.
but if you're having people just routinely say, we're gonna put back what we had and it's that big, then there needs to be as much oversight, I think, as possible, because you don't know what's going in that canal unless there's oversight. I mean, the building department does, but as Jim has pointed out, the public needs to know what's going back there, especially if you live around it. I'm flabbergasted that there's a dock that's larger than my house.
How long is the posting? How many days?
30.
Which
For-
posting?
The posting we're talking about for the canal,
Oh.
if we do the posting. Typical posting is,
Usually it's 30 days, right, for variances or replats.
I have to
or anything.
mail, are you talking about the certified letters? I
Yeah.
have to mail those out within 21 days of the following of the meeting, so 21 days.
so surrounding neighbors, in the letters, $6 or something to send, right? Or do you send them certified?
$6.85.
Okay,
Yeah.
so with neighbors either side,
Within 50 feet of the property,
okay,
Of the
so the
property line.
canals, how
of
wide?
all property lines.
50,
And
so,
wouldn't
Wouldn't get
affect the people
across
on
the
the other
canal.
side, but just
Yeah.
on one side of the building.
so,
And if we've got that, 25 feet out in the canal, it wouldn't affect the other people anyway.
right.
Okay.
Well, I like the idea of the posting. I know that's a time consumer. Are we getting a lot of requests for seawalls?
We've done a lot of seawalls,
I mean, a seawall's a seawall. To me, that's a whole different ballgame than a dock. It seems like
yeah.
we could crank the seawalls through and just do the posting on the docks.
Yeah.
Would be one, hate to cut hairs on this, but it's hard to remove them. If someone puts one too big out there, it's difficult to go back and take it out.
Yeah, but I don't think I would go so far as to split hairs, and I think just say, somebody requests one of these, they do posting, just keep it
Yeah, if they have
clean.
further questions, they can go. to
Posting,
the-
and if the posting expires and no one sends anything, it's back to the building department and they
Yeah.
stamp it and go.
Yep.
Right.
Okay, anybody wanna make a motion?
Go ahead, Lorraine.
Your proposal, okay.
So,
So am I making a motion?
Can I ask a
I-
question though?
Yeah.
I know the worry was the time, so now you're back to waiting 3 weeks
Now we're
for
3
somebody
weeks.
to have an approval
Right.
Well,
But-
on not.
But P and Z's making a recommendation that we're gonna take back to council saying that their approval is contingent on public notice.
I know, but what we're saying is
Right.
the
Yeah.
whole process
Little
was to
waiting.
crank them out, but now with doing the certified letters 3 weeks in
Yeah.
advance, you have to give them a 3-week window. You're back to waiting.
and I hear that, but
2
if you
weeks
call
more.
today to get someone to do the wall, they're not coming tomorrow, they're not coming in 3 weeks.
I'm just asking
Yeah.
for my reference. Some
Right.
people come in here, they're ready to roll and have all their
Yeah.
stuff ready to go. Some people are calling just to ask, so.
Well, we'll
Well,
stir it up. send
It
to
also
council.
takes, though, the time away from having to wait for the next meeting for
Right.
council as well.
That's not
Yeah.
an
And
issue,
it's
so.
and it's an extra piece of junk on their agenda.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that,
it automatically
that could
expires.
be taken care of otherwise.
Yeah. So the notice would expire if no one's brought up anything and the building department's already approved it, it's done and gone.
So you would have to wait, on
Wait
my
on-
side, you would have to wait 3 weeks from when I mail out the letters.
Right.
Okay.
I don't think that's
Okay.
unreasonable for something that's gonna be there for a long time.
I'm just verifying the
Yeah, and I
process.
appreciate that.
Yeah.
You
All
have
right,
to.
I think I've got to, go ahead.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Y'all are taking the time to consider what is going in versus the urge to rush these things through, and I think that that is a good thing. A lot of people would disagree with me, but I'm seeing a lot since the storm that's being rushed through, and we're falling into traps, and we're also making some major mistakes because they wanna cut down on the time, and what I see is the building activity is not that urgent. It's just people wanting it done, so I think what you're doing is a good thing from a citizen standpoint. You're at least taking the time to let the public know what's going on.
Okay.
All right, I've been thinking about this, I'm ready to make this
All right.
motion.
One
Wait a minute.
since you're a regular at the meeting,
It's just a question, what would be the procedure in this case if there was public comment? Would it
We would
go
take,
to the council at that point?
I put it on the council agenda.
Okay.
Okay, so here's my motion.
okay, remember, we have something in front of us that we need to approve, disapprove, or modify.
Okay, so, wow.
Or
That we
the
concur,
ordinance number.
concur with the
I,
ordinance is written with the exception. Except I can't make a motion.
okay, so this motion is to approve ordinance 736 with a suggestion that the council include in this ordinance a public notification process for citizens.
21
Okay.
days.
21 days.
Got it.
Okay.
Can I make a suggestion,
Go
a
ahead, go
modification? Contingent upon provision for public notice.
That's what I have.
Oh,
just
okay.
like that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
contingent upon public notice. Okay.
but, and you can explain to them that we don't want it to go to them after the notice process.
Right.
Building department says it's good, you guys say it's good, let it rip.
A second.
Okay, we have a second?
Mr. Hogan?
Yes.
Ms. Metcalf?
Yes.
Mr. Kerrigan?
Yes.
Mr. Driver?
Yes.
Ms. Lindsay?
Yes.
Before we get off that subject, off this ordinance, a couple of council members is gonna come up tomorrow, I just wanna give you a heads up. We'll probably have to come back to you. Right under that section you guys were just reviewing on E. If you look at, E.
What page?
3 of 6.
3 of 6,
That's
minor commercial development order.
If you look at number 3, where it says upgrade, renovation, repair, or modification to an existing facility within the existing footprint. This came up because the first item you heard was Centennial Bank, that there are some council members thinking that when they're building exactly what they had, that it shouldn't have to come back through the P and Z and council process. They should move forward. Just give me a heads up, that'll probably be on your next P and Z meeting, because if it's exactly the same, there's
Why
at least
does
3
that-
council members saying it's slowing down economic development.
Tough.
Yeah, I don't know what's ever exactly the same, because the bank's technically not
Not
exactly the
the
They're
same.
not?
Yeah.
They're increasing the square footage.
Yeah,
I'm just the messenger.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that.
that's what I think that was
Okay.
right?
So that will come up tomorrow, so be prepared probably.
Upgrade,
So we'll have a meeting.
There are increases
Yes.
for, and also the lanes, drive-through lanes are.
Driveways, yeah.
Yeah.
so upgrade, renovation, repair, modification of existing facilities within the existing footprint.
Right.
There could be
Yeah.
some stickers in there, you know, they could
What's the hurry?
make it too high, they could, you know, not make it in keeping with the neighborhood, I mean, there's,
The only reason that came up is Centennial would, under our understanding, would they be into construction today, had they not? Because I think they came to us like 2 days after your last P and Z.
Yeah.
Oh,
And they were ready to roll.
oh.
And there's a
Well,
couple, couple other commercials, I'm not involved, I'm just relaying the message
Sure.
that's coming
no,
up.
Don't shoot the
we love
messenger.
it. Okay, good. Well, I'm glad we're getting some commercial requests.
Yes.
That's great. Okay, next one, I believe, on the agenda is our minimum square footage. Yes, we have before us another ordinance from the council on a subject that we've talked about numerous times, kicked down the road and around the corner, and that's minimum square footage for single-family dwellings. So there's an ordinance before us that they're asking for our approval, I guess. And does anybody have any comments on this one?
I would ask where the 700 feet came from.
The council discussed it at the last meeting, and they kicked it around with the attorney, and based on different scenarios.
So what were the considerations? Because that's something that we have to consider. Because in doing my critical analysis, I had facts that I considered. So what did they consider?
Their main thing is because of the variation of sizes of lots within the city. And I think Nick had relayed that after we went through it, that probably the best way moving forward would be the minimum of 700. Because that's what you could probably put on the smallest size lot and meet the setback requirements. It's 700 under air. So theoretically, if somebody had a half-acre lot, they could do 700 under air with a huge carport. But that was their considerations. The whole intent behind this was to avoid a situation where the small houses, many houses, tiny houses, yeah. They bounce around between 650, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think we talked 650 and 700.
Yeah, somewhere around there.
Okay, let me tell you my concern with 700, and I'm not going to go into the whole 9 yards when I did my analysis, but there's some facts that we have to consider, okay? The comp plan, section F under purpose, says ensure property owner rights consistent with the general welfare, okay? Right now we're talking property owner rights, they can build whatever the heck they want to as long as it meets the LDR. Okay, goal 3A. Provide, and this is the one that's really important, provide conditions for an adequate supply of safe, sanitary, and affordable housing in a variety of types, sizes, and locations. And that's something the state has focused on here in all the comp plans that have gone on, and that we've talked about ad nauseum here, is that we don't have an adequate supply of affordable housing in Mexico Beach. And Gene, I want to ask you, what does a stick-built home now vary in cost per square foot? It's gone way up.
Yeah,
Okay.
$200-300 a square foot.
Yeah, from my talking to contractors, it went from roughly $125 to $145 a square foot to between $215 and $235 a square foot.
That's correct.
So affordable housing in Mexico Beach is skyrocketing. We're not going to get any more affordable housing. I understand why we can't allow tiny homes. Anything less than 400 square feet, they cost anywhere from $20K to $50K. The city ain't going to have revenue tax-wise if we do that, if we allow tiny houses. So that takes care of purpose F, ensure owner property rights consistent with the general welfare. The general welfare is we got to have money to run the city on. So then, what do we limit in size? Okay, correct me if I'm wrong. Anything greater than 900 square feet must conform with Florida Building Code, must be attached to a foundation. Is that correct?
Oh, anything over 100 square feet needs to.
Over 100.
Yeah.
Okay, I got
Needs to be
it.
Florida building code.
The bottom line is, I took a look at this, and in order, I think 700 is too big. You've got to make it large enough so that we're not talking tiny houses, but small enough so that people can afford it. And just 100 square feet is roughly an additional $24,000 or $25,000 to build a home. And that's going to keep a hell of a lot of people out of here. So when I did my analysis, I came up with 600. It allows for a smaller home, but it's still going to provide enough revenue for the city, to meet its tax base. But there's no way that a tiny home is going to come in with 600 square feet, because they're generally smaller than 400. And even if they build a special one, 500, there's no way they're going to build a tiny home with 600. I just think 700, the additional cost, based on what the cost of building right now is too large.
Good points, just a couple to add. I believe the 700 came because there are some subdivisions or areas that already have a minimum 700 square feet in the city.
Plus apartments, there are some, or multifamily, I think somebody had brought up before that there's 650. And so it was trying to be equitable.
Right, and this isn't for apartments.
No.
Single
Which is
family
typically
dwellings.
affordable housing. In my mind, single-family homes are not always affordable housing, so the stuff that St. Joe's talking about, some other stuff, could potentially be affordable housing. So we're only talking about single-family dwellings on this particular ordinance.
And the affordable housing issue, every jurisdiction in Florida is struggling with that. I mean, Miami, Florida talks about affordable housing.
Sure.
What is affordable housing there? It's $750,000.
Yeah.
Right, I have a question, I don't know the answer to this. What is the cost of modular homes? What does it run?
A lot less.
A lot less.
Well, so they have that option, don't they? So
Mhm.
we still have that option out there. And, you know, and I have to say, they just put a modular home on the street where my daughter lives. It looks pretty nice. You know, it's not the same old, it's not a double wide.
Right, it doesn't look like that.
No,
Yeah.
and they are decent, you know.
And they
So-
meet the
so-
wind codes.
And we still have some options for people.
What is the square footage of that single wide modular home that went in on Florida and whatever?
409 Florida.
Florida and about fifth or sixth.
Fifth
Yeah,
Street.
how
about
Fifth
Fifth Street?
Street. How did that,
1,000 square feet,
how did
roughly.
that get in
I
there?
Okay,
think.
that might
Well,
have
It'll
been.
be on
They
It's-
put, brought it in on wheels. and
It's
then turned it
modular,
off.
so that's,
We did the
well, they all
foundation
do,
for that,
that's
but I
how
don't
they all
remember
do.
what it was. I do know one thing that may help you visualize it is the cottages over, the new cottages on 8th Street.
Yes.
By Toucans are 840 square feet.
Mhm. And if I'm not mistaken, that's what's gonna go in 15th Street as well. The 5 acres, because my
Probably.
family sold that property. And I think, the same people that built
Yes,
8th
Mike
Street.
Malerba,
So,
I think.
Malera, correct, so I think that they're probably gonna put the same size, those little cottages, if
Right.
you will.
This isn't for duplexes either, as I understand. It's just single family.
Single family.
Yes.
Well, to give you another
It's tough.
point of reference, you all know where I live, and the little turquoise house next to me, which is a tool time house, is 608 square feet. And then the yellow house next to it is right at 1,000, so you can look at them.
Well, I think affordable is something that we really should look at. I hate to see the city go any further into, my personal opinion, go any further into keeping out as many people as would like to be here. You know, I know it's on the coast. Luckily, there's several of us who bought when it wasn't that unrealistic. You know, I bought a really nice house on First in Florida for $99,000. Of course, it was 18 years ago. You know, but I would never, ever, ever be able to do that again. And, you know, I'm just a regular working person. Keeping out the regular working people, to me, you know, I hate that. I really hate that.
Yeah, the difference between those two numbers, at an average of $225 a square foot, you said 215 to 235. The construction cost on a 700 square foot would be 157,500. Add to that a lot of roughly $50,000 is 207,500. So it pushes you sort of over that $200,000 barrier. At 600 square feet, the number is $185,000. And I have a creative director that works for me, and I try to recruit people to this area. It's hard.
It is.
They have to live in Callaway and then commute over here. But
For St. Joe.
I recruited her from Memphis, from a big advertising agency in Memphis, and she bought a home, and I'm glad she did. That makes her a much more permanent employee in Barefoot Cottages. And she bought that less than 5 years ago, $150-something thousand.
There, St. Joe, it is a lot of people that were displaced with the hurricane, have opted not to come back. And, you know, what you're gonna have, it's gonna take a while for us to build. I personally, I don't like keeping people out. So I have to err on the side of, I don't really think that it's necessary to do this. But that is my personal opinion, and I know that there's reasons that Jim brought up that are very valid with, you know, needing revenue. I think that there's a lot of things in the city that could be changed that would help the revenue situation, but, I mean, we're not discussing all of that stuff. Other than having the best affordable housing that we could come up with be rustic sands. And at this moment, that is what we have. And I don't particularly think that that's a way to go. So I don't like the idea.
So, do you have a square footage number, or you don't want a square
No,
footage
I
number?
don't really think it's necessary.
So tiny homes are okay?
Well, you know, I don't think you're gonna have as much of that as you think.
Oh, I think you are.
I think so too.
When I checked with the building department a good 6 weeks ago, when this first came up, you'd had, I would say, between 10 and 12 inquiries into tiny homes.
Inquiries, yeah.
Soon as the first and second tiny home go in, guess what's gonna happen? We talk about rolling downhill. People are gonna find out they can do that, and that's what's gonna come in here, and the revenue's gonna go.
Well, the revenue of an empty lot is pretty, you know,
And we haven't had any tiny homes come in yet, and we have had,
you've
you know,
had,
like you
and
said,
what,
inquiries,
were there
and I tell them,
sizes that did they mention a size that they were?
No.
Here's the thing,
They just asked if
tiny
they're
homes
allowed.
are very expensive,
they're very expensive.
and so, you
And
know.
someone can do one right now if they want to.
Absolutely, and
They
I've
just
told
haven't chosen
everyone
to.
that they can,
Exactly,
that
but
it's
they can't.
absolutely allowed right now.
It is, but they're really, if you look at what they really are, they're very expensive. So, you know, that's not a good thing.
No.
But, you know, I think we wanna keep tiny homes out.
Well, I think we have enough rules and regulations in the city,
Well,
and that's my opinion.
What about the container homes? We've talked about those a little bit. Can you explain what that is and square
Shipping
footages of
container
those
homes.
shipping containers?
So shipping containers, standard
Yeah.
shipping containers, 8x40, or then they have the halves that are 8x20. And there's companies that go in and put them together and stack them on top of each other and all this stuff. And it's just like tiny homes. They're very expensive. They present themselves as being affordable. By the time you get finished with them and put them on a permanent foundation, you're really not saving any money. But we have had some inquiries into that as well.
so let me ask a question about how this works. So, what number did you come up with? Are we looking minimum? I know this says 700, but
So
your break was in,
yeah, at
Six-
700 square feet,
no, what?
600.
600?
is what I came up with.
All right, so if we talk about this, would we send back a recommendation to city council that we would consider 600 instead of 700?
We have an ordinance before us, so we
You
have to
approve it or disapprove
either
it.
approve it or disprove it.
Okay,
And then if we disprove it,
then,
then we can certainly say we disprove it and we recommend 100, 500, 1,000.
And if we disapprove, then we actually need to brief them on why we disapproved it.
Right.
Detailed briefing on
Right.
why we don't concur.
And,
well,
just
yeah.
thinking ahead, we can always talk to them, but this came from them to us. not from
I'd
us.
rather
Yeah,
say
this is- I was
So-
gonna say, they actually drew this ordinance because y'all were interested in it, so they're at your guidance.
Yeah, rather than saying disapprove, I would say not
That can change
concur
quickly.
based on the way it is presently written, recommend the following. You know, and again, that can be part of a briefing to them. I mean, that's the way I would handle it.
Okay, so let's start first by approving. Do we have a motion to approve or not approve the ordinance? I guess is where we need to start from it first.
Okay, I'll move that we disapprove the ordinance as written.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Okay,
Mr. Hogan?
Yes.
Ms. Metcalf?
That would make you a yes, because you don't want any ordinance at all.
Thank you, Jim. Yes.
That's all right.
Mr. Kerrigan?
Clarify that, that just confused me when Jim said that.
Okay, she doesn't want any ordinance at all.
I
So
just
if we
wanted to make sure.
recommend disapproval on this,
I wanted to make sure.
We're voting on the ordinance, so it's a
I'm
yes.
just recommending, I agree with your motion. So, yes.
But I
He
didn't make
they
this
didn't-
motion.
They didn't call you yet, he made.
Alex made the
Alex made
motion.
the motion to
So-
disapprove.
Disapproving it.
Disapprove.
Concur, agree with that.
Okay,
Yes, yes.
yes.
Mr. Driver?
No.
Ms. Lindsay?
Yes. Are we gonna now make a
Okay.
recommendation that we go with 600 square feet?
So it didn't carry. So now we have the opportunity to, certainly the council can go ahead and approve it regardless of what we just said. But I think we owe them why we didn't, so now I think it would be good to make a motion as to what our recommendation is.
Is this the first reading at the meeting tomorrow of this?
Yes.
So the public will have the opportunity to have input then? Okay.
Okay, so now, I would move that we go back to city council with the recommendation of 600 square feet as the minimum size rather than 700. And then put the rationale and all those figures you put together.
The main rationale is
Money.
to
To make it
try to provide
affordable.
some semblance of affordable housing.
Yeah. So,
Okay,
okay, is that enough information to make that?
do we
Okay.
have a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Hogan?
Yes.
Ms. Metcalf?
No.
Mr. Kerrigan?
Yes.
Mr. Driver?
Yes.
Ms. Lindsay?
Yes.
Okay. Good discussion, that's why we're here. If we were yes people, it would be no fun. Okay,
Yeah.
does anybody else have anything?
Some people have a different definition of fun, and I thought I was mad.
Come on now, let's get finished up. We've been
Let me
doing
ask
good.
something in the miscellaneous that you brought up.
Okay,
Does anybody remember, or have you heard, if this, what did y'all vote, what did the city council vote as to whether or not the PUD concept plan has to come before the council for approval? I'm understanding that that was taken away.
No.
No, it comes
No,
P
it
and
got
Z,
rectified, it was, the only thing was taken away are
Mini pods.
Yeah, so everything comes back.
So the city still has that concept approval?
Yes.
That's what we've been wondering and waiting on, okay. All right.
okay.
What is the status of the St. Joe?
They just returned their comments to the city's engineer comments, and now I'm waiting for the comments back from the city engineer on St. Joe's comments.
Okay.
I want it all straightened out before I bring it to the governing bodies.
Okay, so it's work in progress.
Is
They
that the
just
Quarry
turned it back to
property?
us today, right?
Today, yeah.
Today.
Is that the quarry property or the other one?
The big one down
The
there.
big
big
one?
one down
Okay,
there.
I wasn't sure.
Okay,
So Panhandle Engineering does have, we have a Panhandle, and I'm waiting to hear back from Panhandle.
Can't wait to see what the prices on those are
Affordable. Jennifer,
gonna be. Yeah.
I'd ask you to check with
Joe
Nick.
Affordable.
I'd ask you to check with Nick on party wall agreements that we had, Jim had brought up a couple meetings ago, and, can you give us some feedback as to?
Yeah, I forwarded you the email, but he said that he does not have a standing party wall agreement, that that's specifically in between the citizens, but if you found it that it was a big enough issue, or the council thought that it was a big enough issue, that he could certainly draw up one, but generally it's between.
Well, I think it's
the residents
gonna
themselves.
solve problems that are bound to occur in the future should we have another disaster like the one we just had. People can agree on what they're gonna do if, should their property be destroyed. You're not gonna have people fighting over what's going on. They've already signed off on what they're gonna do.
it's a huge issue from our design standpoint, and we got probably
It's
10 or
really
12 going. It's a, without a party wall agreement or an HOA, it's a huge
Yeah.
problem.
Yeah. One thought I had was, if we don't wanna get regulatory, non-regulatory, if we don't wanna get too regulatory on, say, this is the party wall agreement that Mexico Beach insists that you use, which I don't think we can, have a box, ask for a box to be added on the development order, party wall agreement in place, yes or no, and, you know, or something like that, and then that would at least force their hand to say, okay, there's no party wall agreement, so we're not gonna approve it, you know, and then if we
It
wanna
would have
take
saved a lot, like on
the
37th
lawyering
Street.
fee to,
Yeah,
or the
I-
cost
no, I
to
think it's a
build
great
one up,
idea.
I think that's worth it.
Have you got an example of
that's
anything like that?
Yeah, I think
I've
that,
got party wall agreement examples, and they go as small as just saying that, you know, the foundation runs through the center line of the two properties where they meet, all the way to what happens if it's destroyed, you know, this property.
That's what we're looking at.
That's what we
pretty
need.
much,
They
yeah.
either have to split the cost, or if unit A rebuilds and unit B don't, unit A pays for the entire wall.
If you could get a copy of that to Jenny,
I can do that.
so we can take a look at that.
Yeah, and it covers a lot of what ifs, so there's not a whole lot of questions.
Yeah, that's exactly what we need.
And
Well,
I guess,
kind of like the idea that you said, where we would just have that, a box to check off and have something,
Well, it's their decision,
a model.
if they
Yeah.
wanna do it or
To
they
do
don't
it.
wanna do it.
well, but I'm not sure it should be, I guess is what I'm saying.
Well,
I think
see,
what Nick was saying was that we can't, as
I
the
don't
city,
think so.
enforce a party wall agreement. It's
Yeah, I
specifically left to.
Yeah, but I would say they're
residents
probably
themselves.
not even gonna consider it
Right.
unless somebody
I mean-
suggests it.
Right,
So I think that's gonna solve problems in
Yeah.
It'd
itself.
be a good suggestion for sure.
Yeah.
That would be a good suggestion.
I'm
Yeah.
surprised that Nick would say that we couldn't enforce that of all the things that,
in the email I forwarded you, he said it would be a commitment between the
Yeah.
It's a
residents.
civil matter.
It's a
Right,
civil matter, yeah.
I agree.
I agree.
One more thing that I
And it brings liability again on
yeah,
us.
I'm sure it
Mhm.
would, that we didn't write the
We
party
don't need
law
it.
on it good enough
Mhm.
to let them move forward and do
Right.
that. So let's meet somewhere in the middle and at least
Yeah.
have one
See an
that we
example.
recommend they use.
Yeah, if you will send me I mean, like you were saying, it's not, a recommendation is great, that, you know, we can.
Yeah.
At
that would
Yeah,
least,
and then
be-
at
as
least
you said, they might not
Raise
even
the
think
flag
about
and
it.
say, have you thought about, you
Yeah,
know,
exactly.
having an agreement? And by the way, here's one or
Here's a
two.
sample if you
that-
would like
that
to
we-
talk
yeah.
about it and take it to your lawyer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
okay.
then, the one that I just had somebody get with, I think it was Charles Carlson, they ended up getting with to do this and retaining him, and it was $200 for 5 units. So
Yeah,
it's affordable to do,
Yeah.
and
Right.
it covers them, something like
right,
Yeah.
that's good,
Perfect.
that's good.
Okay, good.
One more thing that I think P and Z ought to consider, it came out of the open houses early in September, the 2 open house meetings. You have considered a number of requests for people on 37th Street already. People wanting to build single family instead of townhomes, they're combining lots, etc. A lot of those people do not know of the proposed concept for 37th Street, which is to make it commercial with housing on top. And so it's the cart before the
What's
horse, which the people are not aware of. Somebody needs to bring that up to the
I
public
wasn't aware of that.
as
It's on the
these
website.
houses are going through their transformation, because
Survey,
these
It's a-
folks
right.
don't know
And
about it.
before everybody panics, it's a survey.
Oh,
at this
okay,
point,
it's a
Yeah.
survey,
And I
okay.
agree with Lisa, the way that question is written on it, if you go to Mexico Beach site and then dig a little bit, you'll find the survey, and the survey, you
It
can take
ends
until.
October 15th.
Okay, so jump on, take that survey. The two problems I had when I took that survey is, one, the answer I wanted to give, which was heck no, on having commercial on that street wasn't an option on the survey.
That's right.
And then the other one I had is when it said to list the 6 things that you like, it only let me list one. As soon as I checked another one, it took away the one
Yes,
on the top. So
yes.
there are problems with the survey, but this is just a survey at this
Yeah,
point.
whose idea
And,
was that?
and the, I think the concept when they discussed it was not to force like overlay zoning, which I'm against, forcing people, it would be an incentive. So if you put a business there, or if you do a mixed use with a business, maybe you get a tax abatement for a couple of years because you put a business there. I don't think anybody, after we had the discussions with the staff level, when it was FEMA, the way I understood it was, the way I suggested was, you're gonna do something like that, bring a carrot, not a stick. And so if we ever went that route, it would be a carrot process, not a stick process.
But the people who are already rebuilding need to know that that is being considered as a potential option, and they don't.
I've talked to a few down there, they have called me when they've seen the thing, and I told them that I think the standpoint right now is in the future would be an incentive. I don't know, like you say, it's just a survey.
Yeah.
I mean, so many other things we're working on right now, I don't know
It's not even.
how far that gets.
Let me tell you that it's not really just a survey. You've got the 10 government agencies, which is gonna be a snafu all its own. You've got state and federal 10 agencies, and some of them, from the information that I'm getting from them, they're already pushing to get funding for their part on it. So in their minds, this is pretty much what they want to see us do. So it's not just somebody's grandiose
Right,
scheme.
but the things they're being funding for are the trails and the drainage, they're not really focused on that 37th
So-
Street.
Well,
Spread the word, I
what
guess.
about the
Take
40th
the
Street
survey.
Pizza?
The what?
Do you remember 40th Street Pizza?
Yeah.
I do think that was all the rest residential there, and there's.
No, there was
What?
a car repair place there before
Bob
40th
and
Street.
Jeff's.
Yeah.
Bob and Jeff's.
I know, I remember,
Uh-huh.
but I'm just saying, is that not similar to what this would be? And and my question is, how much opposition was there at the time Bob and Jeff's built? You see, Bob and Jeff's were there when I moved here, so I can't go back that far.
I wouldn't.
The pure concept of mixed use, is you
But,
have
yes.
the residential's upstairs and you have a
Well-
coffee shop downstairs. yeah.
Well, and that, and that's just, it's just a little more, with the
Right.
times
I
than.
don't think they would allow an auto repair place
Right,
underneath
well,
residence.
I know, well, no.
Gina wouldn't because it violated Mexico.
Well, I'm just saying though, but somebody could also say, well, that if we can do it that way, then why can't I just put my.
No, I agree.
Answer the survey.
But that, yeah, just answer the survey. That,
Tattoo parlor.
Tattoo parlor.
Okay, anybody else have anything else?
That's big.
How are we gonna handle this thing with council tomorrow on the 600 versus the 700?
They'll vote on it.
but you'll get a, but you'll have,
We have,
you have a whole.
you're gonna
other-
be there, Andy?
Mhm. I'll explain what was said in Genuel, and then you have that, this is just for the reading. You have time if you wanna talk to your council representatives.
Right, this is the first go around, so the next,
If you wanna go more detailed, like.
and ask them to
You can.
lob it back to us if they have a question or
Right.
whatever.
What time is the council meeting?
All right,
1 o'clock.
okay,
Are we done?
do we have a motion to end the meeting?
I make a motion.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Thanks, we blew right through it and then got hung up. It was important stuff.
Ching.